You're a veteran trying to win a VA disability claim, or you're just trying to get your healthcare stuff in order through the VA, this VA Blue Button report is a secret weapon that can be a game changer. So in this video, I'm going to be doing a step-by-step guide on how to actually get a hold of and download this report, what it is actually used for and what you should be looking for in your documentation, and exactly where you go from there. And trust me, if you're going to be submitting a claim and you have not pulled this report in any capacity, you might be falling behind. So before I jump on screen and actually log in and show you how to get this report, let's talk about what the Blue Button report actually is. So the VA Blue Button report is your entire VA medical record. So if you've never actually been to the VA for any primary care appointment of any capacity, you won't have a report built out yet. You can actually download something if you've just signed up to the VA, but it won't show anything yet. So this shows all of your VA only medical history, doctor's visits, prescriptions that you have been taking, all your vaccines that are going to be on there. It shows everything related to you going to the VA for all this stuff. And with all these progress summaries is one downloadable file that can actually show everything that you've had in your past. So it's not useful if you haven't been to the VA, sure. But if you are going and planning to go to the VA, let's say you're in the service now, you plan to take my course, follow the steps to make a claim, which again, everybody on YouTube gets 20% off. But if you're following these steps to file for a claim as you're getting out, you know you're going to go to the VA doctor at least one time. I suggest you check out the VA doctors. I've actually had mostly good experiences. The VA claims process has been challenging for me, but the VA healthcare side has actually been pretty solid. So let's look at why you want this report. All veterans can use these reports as evidence to file for a claim. This is considered a one way of gathering medical evidence because you've gone to the VA healthcare side of the house, and when you're making the VA claims, it's not going to be the same. And guess who made this huge mistake at first? This guy, because when I made my first CMP exam with the VSO, he did me no good whatsoever, and he sent me to an exam and did not explain this to me. So guess what I did? I walked to what I thought CMP exam and a doctor who was going to look up when I had been to the VA, because I'd been at that point about 5 different times, and they were like, you need it and send in your supporting evidence. We do not actually look it up. We can't do that here. So that is why this is critical, because you actually will take this report and you will send it in as one piece of evidence. And when you write a personal statement, which I've described in my course with so many great steps, you will actually use this to pull evidence from. But this also helps for you just to review your own notes from a doctor before going into a CMP exam. You also might want to do this if you've caught anything like an omission or something that might have changed within your medical history that you did bring up to the doctor and it wasn't annotated there. And most importantly, this will create a timeline. It is a timeline. It's a huge document, at least mine is huge document that gives me all the dates every time I've gone, all my panels, all my progress, and that's a good nexus. That's a good nexus connecting the dots from how many times you've been, what you're going for, and what you've been talking about with the VA already. If you've ever felt like the VA has more info on yourself than you seem to be able to acquire, this report fixes it because then you can read everything. Okay, so now I'm going to jump in on screen and we're going to talk through exactly how to gather this report, step-by-step guide, super simple to use, and let's start jumping into the VA website. I'm going to be signing in. I use ID.me. You can use the login.gov, whichever one. Just make sure that you sign in on a secured network before you do anything else. Okay, so right now I just logged into the VA. Now we're going to be going over to this tab right here, which says My Healthy Vet. So now we've gone to My Healthy Vet. There seems to be some new updates here potentially. So there's a little bar on top that's showing appointments, messages, medications, and records. And you also have all of that down here. It seems a little redundant to me, but let's go to Get Medical Records. Now right here, we're looking at medical records. You can get your lab test results, your care summary notes, vaccines, allergies, health conditions, and your vitals. I'm going to go to download your medical records right here. And then pretty straightforward, right? It says right there, download your VA Blue Button report. We're going to select records and download the report. So at this point, you're going to be selecting dates that you need and a few boxes of information that you want to make sure that you gather. So I'm going to go to all time. I highly suggest you do this. There's no reason typically to only get 3 months or 6 months or 12 months. I don't know what that's for, but go to all time, click next. And this is where you want to select the things that you think you need. Now at this point, unless you have a reason to not select everything, I would suggest selecting everything. This will go through all the labs and test results, care summaries, vaccines, allergies, health conditions, vitals, medications, upcoming appointments, past VA appointments, your VA demographics. Maybe you don't need that part, but then it also has your DoD military service records. Remember, this is hugely important to have. So if you have an extra little part of that that's going to be in there when you submit a claim, you just want to make sure you have that on your side. Click Click continue. So select record and download it. I typically just go with a PDF. Most things that you will turn into the VA are going to be a little bit better on a PDF. That way nobody can actually change a text file for some reason. A PDF is pretty strong, and we're going to click download report. The report started downloading. It's going to be up here for me, and then I can open it. Now I just clicked and opened it, but you actually want to click this little button right here to download or save it. Save this file. You're obviously going to use it. And also this might take you a little bit of time to read. This is page 1 of 409. I have gone to the VA definitely a lot, but I have not gone more than about probably 8 or 9 times total. I've been going to the VA since 2017. I've gone obviously once a year since then, so maybe it is more than 10 times at this point. But I had a lot of notes because I've actually gotten all my vitals done and tests, and I was going because I was complaining about my stuff that was happening from service. I was still in the service in the Guard while I was going to the VA. So I was actually using it fully because I didn't have a job that gave me healthcare. So I was very fortunate I could go while I was still in the military. So I started going to the VA early. So if this was helpful so far, you've been learning something new. The deeper dive that I have is in my course. Everybody on YouTube gets 20% off down below, direct link for life. It is a course that you own and you get to jump in at any point. It's not a recurring payment, but this is where this really matters. Teach you how to use the blue button report and actually write your personal statements, use your buddy letters, and look at everything that you need to actually pull from the report to match your story. This is the most helpful if you've been going to the VA, but if you haven't and you've signed up to the VA, you can start going to the VA and you can use it as another piece of medical evidence. So check out Veteran Claims Blueprint. I have it down below the full course, and let's keep going on in the video. But I'm not going to read through this full report because I have some personal information on here, but you can look through it yourself. Look through your own and look at where you have date and time stamps every time you've gone in. Make sure you're looking at when they've either given you a diagnosis or when you've actually asked about a medication or asked about something. Make sure those notes are in there. Go back to the VA, make another appointment if it's not in there, just so you get yourself covered. Remember that in this process, current diagnoses are the most critical to make sure that you have something to link that is current with your in-service event. So a few common issues that people are looking at when they're looking at the VA Blue Button is not actually finding those dates that I'm talking about. If you're like, wait, I went to the doctor a month ago and they referred me to a specialist and that's not showing up in there, you need to make sure that that's actually in there if you're using that as evidence. So another thing with downloading this is actually getting the wrong date range. So like I said, click all date ranges, not the last 3 months, because then you'll have a 3-month document and you'll say, well, wait, I went to the VA last year and I had this. Maybe you just clicked the wrong button. Make sure you're following the steps that I had in this video. Go back and watch them if you need to make sure that you have the full scope of the VA on your side. Again, looking at clinical notes within what the doctor writes is also super impactful. And if you don't see any clinical notes at all, go back and make sure that you get those. Go back and make sure that it's reflected somehow within this blue button report. It's not something you can just go in and type in. You might have to make a new appointment, which again is jumping through more hoops, but those clinical notes from a doctor are gonna be really valuable later on. Probably the last thing is don't use just the blue button report. If possible, use another doctor as well. I've gone to the doctor from the VA and outside the VA, and one of them gave me the diagnosis, and then the other one also gave me the diagnosis. I did say, well, I've been diagnosed with this, and I went there and I said, I was diagnosed, here's the diagnosis. And they also said, make sure they wrote down that I came in for a diagnosis already. So I had 2 pieces of evidence right there that matched. They matched the story, they matched my reality, and they were current. So I think that was really valuable for me. So don't just use this report, use it as one piece of evidence. And again, in my full course, I explain why and how, but there's a lot you can add to it. Okay, so lastly, let me give you a few pro tips here with this. If you have this blue button report, review all of this before your next CMP exam. It is not gonna hurt that you look back and you say, oh yeah, I was talking about tinnitus. It was a couple years ago because that was the first time I talked about it, but you want to make sure it's still in there. Review your notes. These are notes about you. These are things you've said. They might talk about the severities and the clinical notes. It's up to you to actually read this before you use it in a CMP exam. Pro tip, please make those changes. I can't state this anymore. Make a correction and send it to the VA so that they can actually take a look at it for you before you're using this as evidence. Don't pull this report and say, oh, looks good enough, and then you're missing a piece of evidence knowing that you do, and you send it in. Because guess what? That CMP examiner is going to look at what they have in front of them. They're not going to do the research. They're not going to hold your hand. They're not going to dig into the VA. It's up to you to figure that part out and send it in. Oh, and lastly, the biggest pro tip, and I know I've talked about this, but pair this report with a personal statement or a buddy statement that matches those dates. That's a superpower. That is structurally one of the strongest things you can do for yourself, is saying, I've been going to the VA to VA Health, and here's a personal statement. And I've said I've complained about this, and the VA says I came in for the diagnosis. And guess what? Those stories match. They mesh together, and you're able to articulate it well. That's going to be a game saver. That's going to change the trajectory of your claim. If you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe it. Stay tuned for more on my channel. I try to upload at least once a week. And if you already knew stuff about this, send it to somebody that might not know. I'm trying to break these down in simple ways to learn the VA claims process. Again, I have it in my course down below, but if you just want to start by watching my channel, give it some love, write a comment. I love to hear from you. And if you want to watch more, watch this video up here.